Is Tom Ford's Vanilla Sex all that sexy? And how does it stack up against other vanilla fragrances out there on the market? Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Eloise. I hope everyone is having a great weekend. In today's video, I want to talk about a relatively recent release from the house of Tom Ford, a 2023 release, Vanilla Sex. So even though I like the house of Tom Ford, I haven't really paid attention to their fragrances in years. There was a time in my perfume journey when I remember starting to get into niche fragrances. I was obsessed with the house of Tom Ford, and I recall going when I lived in the suburbs before I moved to the city. I recall going to the mall and going to the high-end department store of Saks Fifth Avenue, where the Tom Ford counter had these really big flacons of perfume lined up. And I remember the Tom Ford representatives always being really helpful and quite generous. They would decant their perfumes from the big flacons into these little sample bottles for free, without charge. And these go back so many years that I'm sure they're discontinued. Here is a bottle of Jasmine Rouge, and look at the color of the juice. This one is called Shanghai Lily. I think it's a discontinued fragrance. And this is Neroli Portofino Forte. So I really was a fan of Tom Ford fragrances. And like I said, I just haven't paid much attention to the house in years. And even though the house has a special place in my fragrance journey, I will say that as much as this sounds maybe a little snobby, I don't understand how fragrances at this price point can be found at Sephora, which is a cosmetic store. So in my view, Tom Ford is a high-end designer fragrance, but the price point brings them in the realm of the Chanel Les Exclusifs line of fragrances, as well as Guerlain. They may even be more expensive. And so as a personal opinion, I find it a little strange that they can be found at Sephora as opposed to keeping it a little more exclusive the way I remember when I was shopping for them. You had to go to a high-end department store. But nonetheless, this sample of Vanilla Sex was not a sample that I sought out with the purpose of making a video. It came to me. It was a sample that was included with a purchase. And I was actually excited to get this because every time I walk into Sephora and I try to test some of the fragrances, particularly the cherry fragrances, when I was looking for a cherry fragrance and some of the other leather fragrances, they're always empty. So they have these samples out, and I'm not sure if it's because I live in a major city and everyone is spraying them and they're not replacing the tester bottles that are out on the floor. I can't ever really spray anything because the bottles are empty. So I was happy to receive this. And the minute I smelled Vanilla Sex, I thought, oh, I was intrigued. I thought, okay, this is not a sugary gourmand vanilla like all of the other vanilla fragrances that have flooded the market in the last 5 years. I thought immediately, what immediately came to mind was Guerlain's Spiritus Double Vanille. I'm not saying that this is as good or that I like it as much, but the scent profile brought me there. Without speaking for the house of Tom Ford, I think that this is a simple vanilla fragrance, and I think that's exactly what it's supposed to be. And so what came to mind immediately was the world of Guerlain's Spiritus Double Vanille, and maybe Cuir Beluga a little bit, but that fragrance is more rich and has more going on than Tom Ford's Vanilla Sex. But what I will say is that I don't really get the name of the fragrance. Maybe it's a marketing tool, Vanilla Sex. I don't really see the connection when I smell this very simple, nice vanilla fragrance. I don't see the connection to sex, but maybe it's like the recent release with the curse that I'm not going to say on video. Maybe it's just a marketing tool to get people's attention. But to me, Vanilla Sex is a simple vanilla fragrance that actually smells pretty nice and pretty high quality and reminiscent of some of the Guerlains that I really love. Maybe not surpassing those fragrances, but it is a scent profile that I think is in that realm for those of you that might seek alternatives to the Guerlain Spiritus Double Vanille. And this is not the only vanilla fragrance released from the house of Tom Ford. Either at the same time or before or after, around the same time, they also released one in a black bottle, and that one's called Vanille Fatale. And Vanilla Sex is described as an amber fragrance on the official website and as an enveloping fragrance, while Vanille Fatale is a woody amber. I guess they changed the scent profile, and it would be perhaps, I've never smelled it, but I'm imagining that it would be the darker version of Vanilla Sex, and it's described on the official website as a seductive fragrance, and it's a woody amber fragrance. So I really have been enjoying Vanilla Sex, testing this out over the last few weeks. I wouldn't create a video for the purpose of bashing a fragrance. And we're going to talk about what this smells like. So on the official website, they describe that there is a vanilla tincture from India in here that was created specifically for the house of Tom Ford. And then there's a vanilla absolute. There's an almond note in here, tonka bean, and a sandalwood as well. So I have Vanilla Sex on my left wrist from a few hours ago, and I have Spiritus Double Vanille on my right wrist. But I'm going to dab this on a test strip, and we'll talk about what this smells like. So I get this really nice bitter almond note. I love the smell of bitter almond. It reminds me of some of the Italian cookies, like the pignoli cookies that's made with an almond paste. So I personally like this bitter almond facet in this fragrance. And it comes off really photorealistic to my nose. I guess it comes off like a vanilla extract. And it really does remind me of the inside of that chewy, soft almond paste pignoli cookie. But that strong bitter almond opening sort of subsides as the fragrance dries down. And like I said earlier, this really is a simple vanilla fragrance, at least to my nose, that does have facets of the almond running through even as the fragrance dries down. And you do have that sandalwood in the base. But overall, it's a simple vanilla fragrance that's not too sweet, doesn't come off as sugary, which I really like, is a little warm, and is actually quite enjoyable. But again, it depends on whether you're looking for a simple vanilla fragrance or you're looking for something gourmand and sugar sweet. That would not be this. If you're looking for something gourmand and sugar sweet, or something in the world of the vanilla fragrances from Acro that were recently released, those are different fragrances in my opinion. This one comes off more refined, it comes off warm, it comes off simple, but yet there's a little depth to it. There's a little bit of consistency. It's not airy, it's a little dense, and I like that it's warm. I like what the tonka bean does in here. It is described as an amber, so there is a warmth to the fragrance and a little bit of depth. It's nice. It's simple, but it is nice. Now comparing it to Spiritus Double Vanille. So Spiritus Double Vanille, in my opinion, is a different wear. It wears brighter, it wears lighter. Vanilla Sex wears a little denser and a little more powdery, reminding me a little bit of the way Queer Beluga wears. Not that it smells like Queer Beluga, which I think is much more rich and has much more depth and more going on. It wears a little bit like Queer Beluga, if that makes sense. Has a little bit of denseness, a little bit of powderiness, and a little bit of depth. Not that Spiritus Double Vanille doesn't have depth. It's a simple fragrance as well, but I feel like it's brighter. There's something brighter. There's a jasmine note in Spiritus Double Vanille. There's a little something bright, and it comes off more airy to my nose, so it wears a little differently. But it's an absolutely high quality vanilla fragrance. In Spiritus Double Vanille, you have a very high quality Madagascan vanilla planifolia. So in my opinion, for me personally, I feel like I can't think of a vanilla fragrance that compares to that one, and it will become a full bottle in my collection at some point once I get through the decant. So I do feel that the vanilla in that fragrance comes off more high quality, although Vanilla Sex is a high quality vanilla fragrance as well, in my opinion. Not to the level of the Guerlain, but it is a nice vanilla fragrance. Yeah, Spiritueuse de Blavigny has that jasmine, that creamy ylang ylang. It also has the benzoin and the cedar in it. It is a higher quality vanilla fragrance in my opinion. It's a little less powdery than Vanilla Sex, but I will say that even though in my personal opinion, Spiritueuse de Blavigny would win the day for a simple vanilla fragrance if I was to go and choose between the two. But I will say that Tom Ford's Vanilla Sex is a very nice vanilla fragrance that really impressed me when I got the sample. Like I said, I thought that it was maybe going to be some crazy vanilla fragrance, especially when you consider the name Vanilla Sex. I had no idea what to expect. And considering that in the last couple of years, the market has been flooded with all these sugary, overly sweet vanillas. So it was a pleasant surprise to try this and immediately think of the very high-end, classy, elevated vanillas that come to my mind at least. So putting all of that aside, I think that I would be remiss in not talking about the price difference between the two fragrances. Since I've chosen to compare this to Spiritueuse de Blavigny, I think I have to mention the price differences. Tom Ford's Vanilla Sex sells for $255 for a 30 ml bottle, and the 50 ml bottle is $405. So that's really steep. I've seen it show up on discounters. If I found it at a discounter at a great price, maybe I would go for it. But those prices are really steep, especially when you compare that Guerlain's Spiritueuse de Blavigny is $395 for a 100 ml size bottle. And in terms of performance, I don't think that Vanilla Sex is outperforming Spiritueuse de Blavigny. Not from my experience wearing the two fragrances, and I've tested them side by side numerous times because Vanilla Sex brings me to that sort of scent profile in the world of vanillas. But all in all, I really do like this bitter almond note in Vanilla Sex that's so overpowering in the opening and then subsides, but it is running through this powdery vanilla fragrance that I think is really simple, yet comes off elevated. And I enjoy what it smells like, I really do. So I think it's a nice release from the house of Tom Ford. I need to revisit the house. I need to sample some of their fragrances. I'm curious about the myrrh fragrance. I'm curious about some of the leather fragrances and the rose fragrance. It's been a long time, and I will get back to testing some of these fragrances from Tom Ford. And if you can think of any fragrances that I should get my nose on, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you've tried Vanilla Sex and what your thoughts are on this fragrance and on Spiritueuse de Blavigny by Guerlain. Once again, thank you for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.